Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our session, Can Mentoring Break the Bias? I want to introduce a wonderful person. Her name is Toddi Norum. Very good person to know. She's the business development training manager at VA Systems, and I've known her for a while. And today we're going to have a conversation about mentoring and can it break the bias? So, Toddi, take it away.
Sure, definitely. So I have to say the same about Molly, by the way. I've known Molly for a while, and I consider her to be one of my dearest friends. We're kind of like two peas in a pod. It's really scary sometimes, though. So we definitely we want to talk a little bit about our experiences because we each have had some interesting experiences in mentoring, but we also want to talk about like what to expect and whether or not we in its current form, whether or not mentoring actually can break the bias. And so that's actually been, obviously the hashtag on social media this last week or so has been break the bias. The statistics right now, I mean, considering where we should have come by now to where we are with respect to women leadership in most businesses, we're still looking pretty grim. To be honest with you, I've seen some stats out there, but I'm still really hopeful that, with the right mindset, that particularly women to women mentorship can really break that bias and in a couple different ways. And I'm just going to give you guys some thoughts here that I've had about women mentoring women in particular. Is I think what we do is we break a bias first off because we see the potential. We don't see what someone comes into a job with. And I think that's the difference in the roles that we play as women when we walk into a mentorship relationship is, and then frankly, maybe it's just like kind of an L&D thing. We see potential in almost every person that we work with. So, we have a different kind of a framework of thought, I think, when we come into mentorship that really puts us in that position of, what can we help this person become versus where are they coming from? So that's something that's been really kind of on the top of my mind. And I personally had an amazing mentor. Well, I've actually had two of them, very wonderful and very career oriented, but also family oriented women who came alongside me during different phases of my career to mentor me. And I think they too also saw that I had potential. Actually, I was just thinking about this morning. One of the women who I would credit with really mentoring me in my early days in working with DoD facing businesses said to me once, "You were like a dog with a bone." I was like, "What does that mean?" Which at first I thought of it as a negative thing, and then I actually, after reflecting on it after a while, I realized, you know what? Basically, it was the fact that my enthusiasm was there. She could see the enthusiasm, and I think she was ready to grow that. So it was a really cool experience. But I actually would like to talk a little bit about my mentorship experience, but Molly's had them too. So, Molly, I'm going to actually let you start with yours because I'm really curious to know what your, in particular, women to women mentoring situations have been. And I'll tell you a little bit about mine. Then I also want to speak a little bit about what I think mentoring should do. And then, how we can access that. So I'll let you take it away.
Okay, before I start talking about my experience, I want to give a little bit of the stats that we know of. 1 million fewer women in the workforce in January 2022 than February of 2020. 1 million fewer women. That's a big, big change. As far as there's 82 cents, which is the amount of women earned for every dollar earned by men in 2021, as measured across all medium salaries, and then 98 cents amount per woman earned for every dollar earned by men as measured across the medium salaries for men and women with the same roles and qualifications. That says a lot.
It
Um,
does. That's
so
where yeah, I think we have a lot of catching up to do still.
and it doesn't matter how young or old you are, you can be a mentor indirectly. You can impact someone's life indirectly. So with one of my experiences that I remember really, really well was in the defense industry. New career, I'm around just Air Force retired men, and a few women, and then the rest of the women are in admin, that sort of thing. But there was one particular woman who was a VP, and just the way she carried herself, when she was by herself or presenting or around these men, just inspired me. So it took me a while. I sent her an email and I asked if I could meet with her. Not a lot of people would do that, being the VP of a company. But, what's the worst she could say was no. But she said, yes, come and meet me in my office. And I was very intimidated by her, but I was excited and I was anxious. And I sat down, and one of the things I asked her was, in this society full of men, especially this industry, how do you deal with some of the ways the men treat you because you're a female?
Curious to know what the answer was.
And she straight out said, well, Molly, you have to believe in yourself. And she said some of the things, it's hard, but find a mentor, find someone that you want to follow, but believe in yourself and believe in what you want to do, because you can do it better than any of these men. And she said, now there are some men that are going to look at you and say, oh, what does she know? She's a female. And then other men are going to say, she's such a itch bee that, it's because you're assertive. And she said, don't let that bother you. You have to, people are going to try to push you down and say things and be naysayers, but you look deep inside you and just remember that you are strong and you can accomplish anything. And every now and then that fear is going to come in and kind of be overwhelming. But she said, just remember that you can do anything. You're just as good and as talented as any of these men, even retired generals and admirals. So that's one thing I've taken to heart. I've kept in touch with her. She's since retired. But that was one of the things that every now and then when I feel like I am having imposter syndrome or I am feeling like worthless, I think of that moment and I think of how she made me feel. And that's so important. And we also talk about the communities and that's so important too, how you can lift yourself up. So that is one of my experiences that has been with me.
Yeah, it's amazing how that does stay with you. It's funny because mine was a coworker, not a boss. But I had started, so actually, I mean, twice in my life, I've been mentored by other women in areas of work where it was primarily male dominated. I mean, I've had a long career, so I would say that the most important relationships that I built were early in my career. I think in terms of kind of empowering me to feel like I could do the job as well as anybody else. But one of those was a friend of mine, again, another friend of mine, I kept her as a friend for sure, who was programming and testing software early on in a company, a more commercial-based company, who did kind of the same thing because I had been the tech writer for the organization. I was doing, a lot of back-end understanding what the software code meant, that kind of thing, really kind of digging in and studying it and trying to figure out what was going on. And she was the software tester of the group. So she was actually very, very good with software. And I remember feeling, again, you walk in, you're like, how did I get here? Do I belong here? Do I have the skill here? And then, you wake up and realize, okay, it's me and this other woman and, another 60 men in the department, which is a little bit intimidating. This was, way back in the kind of the early 2000s. But she was very positive with me as well and explaining to me there's really nothing here to learn that is that big of a mystery that a man has to do it. I remember, it was like that, I'm paraphrasing, but I remember her saying that to me and I remember thinking, you know what, she's right. That pretty much anything that they know or that they can do, I can learn to do as well. So, I was actually very fortunate in that particular role. I had a boss, a male boss, who spent time with me at lunch going through and teaching me how to code and how to hack, which I thought was really fascinating. But I was very largely supported by this other woman in the business who had a family, who had, had a husband at home, had a lot of things to balance. Actually her kids were all very small. And I was really inspired by watching her and, continued to be inspired by watching her as her career moved forward. So, to some extent, I think we really supported each other. So, maybe not a traditional mentorship type of role, but it was a very important role that she played in my life and still does, honestly. Um, Going into a more DoD focused business, I actually encountered situations where I might be one woman out of like 150, and especially with one of my last roles that I held in that industry on the programmatic side. I was one woman out of like two or three that went out in the field and worked directly with the Army, which is primarily men. And I was mentored by a woman who was a manager. She was an engineer. So that was probably the most intimidating part for me, was that she was an engineer. But again, really with that whole mindset that let me show you the body of knowledge. Let me help you skill up. Let me help you grow in a way that you can continue to be skilled and move into that role without any kind of consideration about whether or not you belong there. Without giving it a second thought, was really kind of more the mentality behind it. And I think I really adopted that, where, it's like once I felt like I had built the skill set, there wasn't any stopping me. And I still feel that way now. I actually work in a business that is probably mostly men on the department that I work in. We have a lot of women in our company, a lot of women leaders actually. But in my department, it's mostly men. But I think it's still a matter for me. And even when I first interviewed for the role I'm in now, they were like, we want you for your skill set, and just actually kind of tapping into that to know that you have built that skill and that there's nothing that's going to stop you is really empowering. But as women, we can do that for each other. And on the mentorship side, we can help each other build that network that might not be present for us in our workplace. Because I can tell you that the women I form relationships with were my network in my workplace, because I might not have fit in quite as well with some of the guys. And many of them were, at the time that I worked with some of these people in business, they were retired military, they were transitioning military guys. And as much as I love them, I didn't fit in. So the fact that I had women mentors gave me a space, a safe space, right? That emotional safety where I could fit in and I could ask questions, and I could ask questions of another woman in the business. So I'm really grateful for those experiences. They were amazing.
And one of the things to add to that is that, always listen to your gut. Even if you think something doesn't sound right, something doesn't feel right, be aware of your surroundings, of who you're talking to, because you're going to feel if they're out for themselves or if they're having good intentions. And one thing that I want to add to my story is that the president of Lockheed Martin was, when he saw me talking to I will say her name, Corel Hansen, because she's just a dynamic person in my life. When he saw me talking to her and said something, I went up to him, and everybody around me, even my coworkers, were like, "You don't go up to the president of da da da," and I'm like, he's just a person like everybody else. And so I went up to him, I talked to him, and the funny thing is, I kept calling him Dan, and nobody corrected me. He didn't even correct me. And once that was done, we were talking and I was joking with him. And technically, I didn't know he was the president. And he said, he invited me over, if you ever want to talk, just let me know. My door's always open. And I'm like, thank you, Dan. And so then when I left, my coworker said, "Do you know who that was?" And he was like fearful. And I said, "Yeah, that was Dan." And he's like, "No, that's Dane. He's like the president of the company."
Oh, wow.
And afterwards, I went and I apologized and said, "I'm sorry, I said your name wrong." And he said, "It's okay." He goes, "Because you are the one of the people that is genuine, and you treated me like a human being. You treated me like an equal."
Absolutely.
And that's something. So yeah, you never know. And but Toddi, tell me how right now in your current situation, what have you done as far as the mentoring of and skilling up? How do you transition from what you're doing now in your job,
Right.
your coworkers, and with your colleagues in different communities? Because community to me is so important.
It is, and I work with a wonderful group of people. I've got a couple of women that I work with who I just admire the heck out of because they are very skilled in what they do. We've got some folks that do a lot of graphic design. I actually on a regular basis will geek out with one of them because I really enjoy talking to her because I think we're kind of she's a little bit like you and me. She really likes the technology. I have not done anything formal. I will say. I have an employee that I really, enjoy working with, and I keep hoping that, if she wants to reach out to me, she knows she can. I do regular check-ins and I let her know that, I'm always available to ask questions, answer questions. I try to have that quote unquote open door policy, which is really hard to do during COVID, right? But it's important to me to feel like, and it's a complete switch from where we were in the past. I am now in that mentorship role. So, I see myself as a mentor and more informally when I can, but I always let folks know that kind of open door policy is there. And it's interesting because in the role that I'm in right now, I probably actually mentored more of the younger men, and so it just kind of happens, because I do have program experience that I can actually bring to the table when we're having discussions a lot of times. And so I always hope that flows down to whoever needs to hear it. Not that, I don't have women in the training sessions that we're running, because we do have a lot of women. Quite frankly, I'm just like really impressed by most of them. Most of them don't actually need a lot of help. I've seen some pretty incredible ladies in the business that I'm in who are leading full program development. It is that kind of company, and I feel really fortunate to be there. But in the past, I've always tried to be available for people who were part of my group to let them know, I can at least help you understand your next steps. And then that's kind of where I'm at this moment. If you want to know like where I'm at right now, I have looked to working with people to see how I can help them explore and figure out what's their next step. What are they missing? What are their gaps? And to me, that's what mentorship should do for you. Is it should be someone who can help you really think through, where do I level set? Where do I fit in? What am I missing? How do I get those skills? Who do I need to meet? What connections do I need to make within my organization? And if there's a place for me, where do I want to go? And it's definitely, again, all very forward thinking. And
Right.
if it's out, it might even be out. Sometimes moving up means moving out of an organization. And actually, my previous mentor in the way back had said that to me when I worked with her, and she said, your next step may be out and not within this organization, which was really good advice. But she helped me level set on the skills that I didn't have. She gave me a basis of knowledge. She provided me with books. She invited me to webinars. And this was in the way back when we actually had webinars that weren't, mandated by COVID. Um, she invited me to join professional organizations, to join internal professional organizations. And actually, I'll step back and I will say, I actually have made a lot of contact with some incredible ladies within my company who are instructional designers, but on programs. Like when I say programs, I mean like they're literally working for the Navy, they might be working for the Air Force. So I did recently make that effort. I was at a conference in Park City, Utah, and while I was there, I specifically made the time to go and meet the incredible ladies that are part of the Hill Air Force base group. And if any of them are on right now, I have to say, like, they just blow me away, because they're doing way cooler things than I'm doing right now, and I'm just like kind of in awe of what they're doing as a department. So
Well,
it kind of goes both ways. I'm learning from them too. So all good.
yeah, and that's what I was about to say, is because I know that you've helped me out indirectly. You are one of my mentors and inspirations, and as women, I know that we have to help each other. We have down days, we have bad days, we have good days, we have exciting days, but sometimes we want to bounce things off of people. And I know that you've been there for me and vice versa. And you are good at, guiding people on, listening to what they want or what they're thinking, even though they have a million things in their head, and you're good at like level setting and saying, okay, so let's start with this first. Maybe this is what we want to do first, and look into this and guide yourself towards where you think that they should, you know, go to get their skill sets up and kind of grow into a transition to where they can kind of be an entrepreneur.
Right, and take that next step. Yeah.
Take that next step if they're wanting to branch off, or if they want to do if they want to be a freelancer, or even if they're in a company, where they want to go in that company, what levels to take. Sometimes in certain corporate companies, they say that, you know, we'll help you, but then when you go, there's no help. It's crickets.
Right. Absolutely.
So you being in management, people look up to you. And again, there are things that there are people that can be mentors without even knowing that they're mentors. I know that
it's true.
A couple of instances happened to me, and I didn't even know. I was just telling them, this is what I'd like to do, and this is what I'm thinking of. And I get a text the next day saying, thank you, you really inspired me so much that I stayed up until 4 o'clock getting my website done. And I'm just like, wow. But we have a couple of questions, and I think that
I've seen some comments in here I'd love to address.
So the first question is from Christina, and she asks, being mentored by someone is both inspiring and intimidating. What can we offer to our mentors to make it worthwhile for them? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think we can offer them camaraderie, and that's kind of goes back to what I was saying before, especially if you're in a very male-dominated career. You know, you're giving them that community that is a community of women. You know, and we're not all the same, but you know, we can identify with some of the same challenges, and I think that's something we can certainly offer. You know, and typically we, you know, especially at yours and my experience level, you know, there's probably not much we haven't done or haven't encountered, and so I think at least we can give a perspective. I'll never ever claim to have all the right answers ever, but I do think we can offer perspective. And you know, sometimes that's hard when you're doing something on your own and you have questions about whether you're doing it right or whether, you know, you've approached it the right way. It's nice to get somebody else's perspective, even if it isn't like advice that you would necessarily take. You know, it at least gives you something to think about. I was gonna say, I don't know if you looked at the chat, but we've had some chat in here about people, women in tone, which I think is fascinating because this actually goes back to, you know, my early days in working in the DoD facing businesses. I remember approaching someone who was, you know, very high ranking in the military at one point and being told I wasn't supposed to approach this person. You know, and to, you know, to balance that out, I mean, I've been talked to by some of them in ways that I didn't want to be talked to either. Okay, so I mean, I understand that there's protocol in any business, whether it's DoD facing, whether it's all men or not. But I think it's important to use the tone that you would normally use. You need to be yourself. You know, I think we need to be authentic at work. And you know, I mean, if somebody doesn't like that, that's fine. Never bothered me. And I can tell you, I actually had an issue at one point where I called something out on a program. Got a call from my manager on my cell phone, my company cell phone, probably about 5 minutes later. I was at a testing area down in Huntsville, Alabama. And I had mentioned something that I thought didn't quite seem like, you know, the way we should be doing business. And so didn't take very long before, you know, the person I was working for was telling me, you know, what are you doing? And why are you saying these things? And I'm like, because this is the truth. This is what I just observed. So I recall having to stand up for myself big time, you know, to be able to say, okay, you know, this is exactly what I observed. You know, I question how we're doing business on this particular contract. And, you know, we need to step back and take a look at this. And I didn't really have anybody in my corner because, you know, I had a boss that was, you know, crawling all over me for, you know, saying something wrong and potentially getting us in trouble. The woman that was my mentor at that company actually really stood very firmly in my corner with me as well, and I really am grateful for that. You know, in the end, what I basically said I thought I was observing was correct. You know, so don't be afraid to stand up. Don't be afraid if somebody thinks that you're you know, using a tone of voice with them that is, you know, incorrect. I mean, you really have to be authentic, and you will have setbacks. There's no question you will have setbacks. I mean, I'm going to be the first person to tell you that I have actually been fired in a job before, for for speaking my mind. The, the good news about that is when it happened to me, I had a better opportunity like 3 days later. So I mean, sometimes it's a good place where you can cut the ties and move on to something better. But yeah, I don't back down.
And I think that that's important too, is because for me, I don't look at color. I look at the person,
Right.
and who they are and what's inside and what makes them great, and then what are they looking for? Are they looking for help to learn a software? Are they looking for someone just to talk to, somebody just to shadow? Because there are those that just observe, and that's okay. You don't have to talk in a community. It's okay. But if you do, that's the best way to be around, to feel that psychological safety, and learn from people. And again, I don't care if you're whoever you are, you be you, you do you, like not like never before. And you don't look at them as any other thing as a human, and you look at them as a human being, nothing else, because they put their underwear on one leg at a time, if they wear underwear.
Oh dear.
They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like we do anybody else, and that's so important. And so there's another question, and I'm gonna probably butcher your name. I'm so sorry. Tanecha. I'll just call you Yoti. How's that? Asks, does society or industry practitioners tend to associate imposter syndrome as a female plight? Do we ask or expect men to feel this way and support them? Wondering if anybody has found that there is care needed when assuming a woman feels this. Good question.
It is a good question. Okay. Interesting. I guess and maybe it's just my own, like naivete. I've never really thought about imposter syndrome as specifically female.
Right.
I know we've certainly experienced it. We've talked about it. We've talked about. I mean, in fact, it was interesting because when I met with my women who work at this other organization, one of them is doing amazing things, but she herself also talked about feeling like she had some imposter syndrome because her question was, "How did I get here?" Well, I mean, I've asked that question to myself before. I was pulled out of, recruited. It was a good thing, out of one business to go and lead, a complete program of training and development for the Army for a robotic system. And I remember thinking to myself, how in the world did I ever get here? Well, I can tell you how I got there, and this was one of the conversations I had with one of these incredible women from my organization. Was we got there by saying yes. Honestly, sometimes yes can open up doors, but it can also open up that sense of feeling like, how did I get here too? And that's okay, because again, you can grow into a job. I guess, from a hiring standpoint, I don't expect anybody to ever come fully baked into a job. I will say that what I have noticed, and this might be generalizing, but fields that are typically more male dominated actually tend to have like really good training systems built around them. I mean, you look at things like the Army. The Army builds really good training systems for men and women. But then if you go into like some of the best documented training systems out there are for like auto repair. And not a lot of women in auto repair, but boy, did they ever have good training systems. So, it's like there does actually seem to be a little of a bit of a bias when it comes to training that way too. But it's again, is it a question of whether we're building these for men, or is it only men who are showing up for these jobs? So I don't want to speculate on that, because there's always a chance that it's just because more men are choosing these roles. But as far as imposter syndrome, I've never seen it as a particularly female thing, and maybe it is. And maybe I've probably even said it to Molly. I'm not sure, except for maybe my role, developing training for the robotic system. I don't think I've ever walked into a job and ever felt like I was an imposter, because I've always felt like I walked in and I'd been brought in because I knew my stuff. And I think that's part of what you have to know. You have to know that you know your stuff. And that's a good mentor will help you see what you know. They'll help you level set and understand what you know and what you don't know and where you might need to skill up, or even to help you kind of figure out what it is that you want to do. Because sometimes we don't know, right?
Right.
So how about you, Molly? What's your thought on that too? Because you've had different experiences than I have. So
I think men feel it too, but I think as women, because we're nurturers and
good point.
we from the start, from when we're a little girl, and Toddi, you and I've talked about this, from when we are a little girl, what are we given? We're given a little baby doll to hold and to carry. So right there, that labels us as a caregiver. And that sets the tone of, well, females are always supposed to care. And then the way you're brought up and the way the media and the society shows is that you should always be a housewife, or you should always be a secretary, or you should always be, muck that. I mean, come on now. You can do anything. You can do anything that you set your mind to. And sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, sometimes fear gets in the way, and fear is the worst killer of your dreams. So you have to reach deep inside and kind of have that moment of, why am I feeling this way? And then again, you talk to your mentors, you talk to your friends, you talk to the people closest that get you. And I know that I've been laughed at a lot, whether it's in a corporate job or by some of my friends in college, because I was talking about things that were I was talking about AR, VR, and artificial intelligence whenever nobody knew what it was, and people laughed at me.
I know,
And
but that's what I loved about you when I met you. I'm like, oh my God, someone just like me.
and a gadget girl, but and I kept thinking out of the box in this corporate job that I had, and with reorg, everybody would laugh at me, and then I had this one boss that kind of pushed me aside, and I'm thinking, I really need to leave here because I'm not getting anywhere, and they're just like holding me down. And so that's what I did. I left. And I know that for some of you that know me, my late husband was a US Navy veteran, and he always told me, don't worry about the people that laugh at you. It's just because they don't understand you. Because look at Steve Jobs, look at Elon Musk, look at Richard Branson. They all got laughed at. And it's just because those people don't understand. Right. So don't let that deteriorate your brains and your thoughts and your dreams. So I think for imposter syndrome, I think females probably feel it more, or it's known more because we're a nurturing type and we care more and we like to share more, whereas men think that nobody can see me cry. So I just think, go listen to your gut, follow your dreams. Even if you don't have a community, get out there. It's scary, but get out there. But yeah, don't let that mental thing of, psychologically, I had a little baby doll, and so again, people label you as a caregiver. Do what you feel makes you feel good. And surround yourself with people who are positive, because I've been around those people that are so toxic and so negative, and it's so stressful, and it's like I had to break away. And it was hard because that's what they thrive on, those narcissistic people. But when you surround yourself in a community that is so positive and there for you, and directly and indirectly, oh my God, it makes such a difference.
It does. Well, and I think that's where we can be there for each other. I made a really conscious decision. So my kids, my kids were, talented, involved in school like everybody else's kids. And I remember thinking to myself at one point, do I need to be home for them? Of course, it's that caregiver that's, tugging at my heartstrings saying, should I be there for them? But I liked my work. I liked my work a lot. And I still like my work. My work is a lot of fun, actually. And I made a conscious decision when let's see, my daughter was like fifth or sixth grade. My son was, eighth, ninth grade. I went to work full time, actually developing training for the U.S. Army. I've taken a lot of flack. Honestly, I have actually taken flack from people that I worked with. I've taken flack from people that I knew in my community about, well, you work full time, you travel a lot, you're gone, you're not with your kids. And I have to tell you that the one person whose opinion matters to me the most is my daughter, who actually also now works for the Navy. And she used to tell me, I always thought it was really cool because my mom went out and developed training for folks that saved their lives. It mattered. We did something that was important. We got back robots that were blown up because no one lost their life. And like, did I give up time with my kids? Yeah, but I think I also earned a respect from them that I don't know if I would have had otherwise. My both of them, they used to joke, they were like, all right, 99's home. She can't tell us what she does, but we know it's kind of cool and it involves robots. But for me, I think that just pretty much smashed any imposter syndrome out there for me, because it was like I knew that I had the respect of my family. I certainly had the respect of the young daughter that I was raising, and so that makes a big difference. I'm curious. It's just not to change the subject, but I'm curious. Does anybody have any commentary about whether or not they're having any trouble finding women mentors in particular? Because that's something I'd like to know more about, if people are having that issue. And because I know Molly and I we've done some things kind of informally. We haven't really done much formal, but I know we've tinkered with the idea of actually being able to help people find mentors. And I know I've done quite a bit of mentoring with people who've been transitioning from teaching, into instructional design, which is an awesome career. It's way fun, but it's not easy. It takes a little bit of doing to get from that path to this path. But I'm just curious, is anybody having, issues finding mentors, or communities of women to help support them? Molly, are we seeing anything at all?
Yes. How do you find a mentor?
Christina. Okay, Christina says, okay, contact us for one thing, because we'll help you find somebody. I just, not all workplaces have good and strong mentorship programs. I will say that mine actually has such a good mentorship program that I really haven't thought much about whether I should build anything on my own, because we've already got it. But in your workplace, in your career, even outside of your career, I'm curious. Christina said she has peers, but looking for a mentor to pull me up to the next level. Okay, so Christina, maybe you want to expand on that. What are you looking for? I'm just curious. Next level in your job? Are you looking to skill up and move out? Are you looking to grow in the job you're in? Ready for leadership. Okay. Excellent. All right, exactly. Okay, that's actually good to know, because you can find leadership programs in almost every company, but the question is are you going to find the mentorship to go along with those leadership programs? And I don't know, Molly, you probably had more experience in that than I have, actually, and with women's leadership programs.
Yeah, actually, the way I kind of started was
They're loud.
they want to chime in. The way I started is I started looking around in the local area, but then that kind of grew to, okay, what exactly do I want leadership in? Do I want to talk about leadership in management, leadership in instructional design, leadership in coaching? And then I kind of focused on what it was that I wanted to do. And that kind of led me down the road of some of it was on accidental, but some of it was, God works in mysterious ways, where I found my passion. And, I started looking into groups that way. Now I have a global network of my I'm passionate, and I disclaimer is when I think about it and I talk about it, I start to stutter because I have a passion for mixed reality, augmented and virtual, and 360 and photogrammetry and drones, and it's just, but you start looking there. But you also, Megan had a good point earlier today. Is you start with your network, and you, the chart that she gave earlier today was so awesome. And you point to people that are like us, like Toddi and I, like Luis, like Vanessa, like Megan, Kathleen, and just Lisa, and just you start with those people and just start reaching out and start talking, and sending a message, and just growing that way, because you don't know, you might say something, you might think you want to be skilled up in leadership, but then you find out, well, what type of leadership? Oh, I want to do emotional intelligence, or oh, I think this part of it, of the cognitive neuro leadership, is good. And I might say, you know what, I have networks in that, so let's come join me, follow me, and that's how we grow. That's how we mentor. Just start talking.
Yeah, and ask questions, because
and
questions will help you find the right answer.
there's no question.
No, yeah. Well, and that's just it. It's like, like once I got to know Molly, it was really apparent to me that she has a passion for, the mixed reality things, but also entrepreneurship. So, I certainly have a network that's, been dedicated to entrepreneurship, but I also know people who are really skilled with the leadership science and the neuro aspects of that too. It's not my niche, but a decent mentor should be able to point you to somebody else who can help you as well, and somebody who's fairly well connected. So I will say that that might be maybe part of what you should look for, is somebody who's got good connections. But just talking and asking questions is really going to lead you to find the right people.
So we have a couple more minutes before we take a break. Is there anything, Toddi, that you want to kind of sum up on? And Toddi and I could talk hours and hours. We actually have talked hours and hours about just so many things about entrepreneurs and leadership and mentors, and of course we have to get into the dark side to get that all out, and then we get into the good side. So, and that's all about it. So I'm going to drop my LinkedIn in the chat, and Toddi.
Yeah, I'll have to find mine, actually. I've been kind of remiss these days with LinkedIn, but be sure to hit me up on LinkedIn if anybody, wants to chat with us. Me or Molly, more on that.
Or you can email me and we'll connect each other.
Yeah. But I will say this, Molly. I really do believe that the mentorship that I've had and the camaraderie I've had with other women in industry has really set me up for success. And I mean that sincerely. Without this incredible lady that came alongside me when, I first started working in the DoD spaces, I don't know that I would be where I am. And I had actually met with her, I don't know, it's been probably a couple of years ago, and she says, well, the student becomes the teacher, and she just kind of grinned when she said it. But it's not even that. It's like the empowerment that she gave me, helped me make the next steps, and it really did. It made a huge difference for me. And so, I encourage you, if you don't have that type of relationship, just ask somebody, would you mentor me? Because, I get that question all the time, and I'm really fine with that. And if I don't have the time, I will just say, I don't have a lot of extra time, but let me help you find someone when I try to do that. So,
right. And Joanne had a good question, which stemmed from, I believe Megan had mentioned it. Do you distinguish between mentorship and sponsorship?
Me personally? I think, mentorship is helping to build someone up. Sponsorship is really kind of, they become your pet project almost. And I've been in those roles before where, I felt like I was somebody's pet project, and, they needed to see me succeed because they needed to do something really great on their own. That to me is the difference. And the mentorship is a relationship where I think somebody actually really does care about what you want, or at least helping you discover what you want, because sometimes you don't know. So I threw my email in there too. Anybody's welcome to email me. So, and yeah, Kayleen actually threw her email in. Kayleen, by the way, if you haven't followed Kayleen, she is like just an amazing force in this business. And I hear Kayleen's name all the time from lots and lots of people. So I don't think she realizes how many followers she already has.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, but I mean, seriously, this is a great place. If you're just getting to women of L&D with TLDC, if this is the first time you've encountered TLDC, this is a great place to start. We are just incredibly authentic, organic, all of the above. And I think most of us here want to see others succeed.
Absolutely. And so with that, thank you everybody for joining us. And just, again, feel free to reach out to us. And just remember that, as women, we have to be positive and hold each other up.
Absolutely.
And just, oh, sorry, I was reading one of another message from Luis. Thank you, Luis. We just need to hold each other up, especially in these times, and we can be stronger as a group.
And let's break that bias.
Hashtag break the bias, because we can. So thank you all. And if, again, just reach out to us.
Yeah,
and
looking forward to getting to meet you guys. So cool.
Yeah, and we'll see you in the panel, actually.
All right, sounds good. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.